Right, I'm here at New Central Park with Chris Dodd of Kelty Hearts. We're just going to go over a wee bit of your career, obviously your experience in the East of Scotland, Lowland League with Kelty Hearts. First of all, my first question would be, how did you actually get into football?
I just got involved with football through school, I think, initially, and then basically just playing football. I remember we had a house which overlooked one of the busiest roads in Perth, and I just remember my mum always running out, making sure I don't kick the ball on the main road. So we actually moved house into an industrial estate with a sort of massive football pitch next to it, and that's my earliest memories from then on. Just played every second of the day, really.
Yep. You got signed to St Johnstone from the Bridge of Erin under 13s. How did that feel as like a young boy getting signed to a team like St Johnstone?
Yeah, well, it's going back a few years now, Chris. But no, yeah, it was a bit surreal because I was actually a St Johnstone fan growing up. Right. We just lived up the road from the stadium, so I'd go to all the games, home and away, in the supporters' bus, even as a young lad. And then for obviously to get signed in. I'm sure it was maybe started under 12s or 13s, sort of, and built my way all the way up until I went full time. So yeah, it was.
And then obviously after that, you kind of moved on to Jeanfield. That was in your first spell. Was it quite difficult going from the likes of St Johnstone to Jeanfield?
It was, to be fair. Actually, something you've not picked up on. When I was at St Johnstone, I got loaned out first of all at Dundee North End, which is a junior team in Dundee. And that didn't really work out. I remember when I signed full time with St Johnstone, me and one other were slightly older for the under 19s, so we didn't actually have a team as such within St Johnstone. We were training with the first team now and again, and we had a reserve game once every 2 weeks. I think this lad Sean McCallion, he went out on loan down to an Edinburgh side because he was an Edinburgh boy, and I went to Dundee North End. It didn't work out, and then after that I went into Jeanfield. And it was a bit different. I was young. I certainly wasn't ready for, in my opinion, sort of men's football. I wasn't the biggest. I'm still not the biggest, to be fair. But it was a bit of an eye opener. I certainly got taught how to socialise and how to drink.
I think that was my issue, mate.
Yeah.
Too much, maybe.
A few of the boys there's only one or two still there. I think Mark Mitchell, the goalkeeper, he's been there for years, so he sort of took me under his wing, and we've remained good friends ever since then. That's going back, must be 10, 12 years or something like that now.
Obviously it was a different dynamic. Years ago we didn't have like sort of East of Scotland and the Lowland League. We did have East of Scotland, but it was obviously a different dynamic. When you signed for Jeanfield, they were playing in the East Region Central Division, which was two below the Super League, which I think most people are familiar with.
That's right.
Do you miss that a wee bit, playing just locally or like just against local teams?
No, I wouldn't say I miss it. I think to be honest with you, I can always go back and play locally when I'm a little bit older. And to be honest with you, I quite enjoy the away days as well. I mean, at that time at Jeanfield, we were, I think, if my memory serves me, we were still playing teams like Crossgates and all the Five sort of teams. I'm sure maybe even Kelty were in that league at one point, before they made the step up to the Super League. But no, I wouldn't say I overly miss it, no.
Because me personally, when I started going to the juniors, I thought it was kind of great. Obviously, I was following the likes of Kelty and Hill of Beef, which I always kind of keep quiet, but I think people know that. And yeah, it was just pretty good. Obviously, local football, and as I say, the dynamics changed a lot since those days. Moved on to Oakley United, who I think were at a similar level to Jeanfield at the time.
They were actually in the same league. My memory serves me. It was actually, at the time, I was kind of in between what I wanted to do. It hadn't worked out full-time football at that point. I was kind of wondering what on earth I was going to do. So I ended up actually working with Murray McDowell, who you know is at Kelty just now. And at the time he was playing with Oakley, because he was also at Jeanfield. So he took me to Oakley, and I played under Stevie Kay, who I believe is Tayport manager now.
I think
is that
so.
right? Yeah. And I made some great friends there. And at Oakley at that time had a lot of sort of ex-senior pros. You had the Dare brothers were playing, Cusack, John Cusack, Ryan Blackadder, dude was in there, and also played with a young Brian Ritchie, who obviously plays here at Kelty as well. So we won. That was the first taste of silverware that first season, and I learnt a lot. I think I kind of grew up, fell back in love with football at Oakley, and really enjoyed it. I've got some great memories there, particularly in the Scottish Cup. I remember Beef Juniors came, then Lithgow came. And at this point, I was still maybe only 19, maybe 20, and to see these sort of big crowds, and like I said, it's just coming away from Perth into the Fife mentality. I know it's only 20, 30 minutes down the road, but they make you, if you make a mistake, they know about it. You know about it. They make sure you tell you it's not good enough, etc. And like I said, I think that Oakley, then 2 seasons I was there, was probably a great grounding for me going forward.
And then you kind of moved back to Perth to Kinnoull Juniors. To be honest, Doddsy, I'm going to show my ignorance a wee bit here. I don't really know a lot about the club other than the fact that it's the only junior team in Perth. Yeah. Now obviously that Jeanfield's kind of moved into East of Scotland. Yeah, that's pretty much correct. You've got Lunkerty, who are also junior. That's maybe you're talking 5 minutes north of Perth, so they're still classed as Perth. But Kinnoull Juniors, there was my ex, who's now manager at Elgin, Gav Price. He's from the Breadalbin, Aberfeld area, so I think he had heard me doing quite well at Oakley in my second season. I just thought it was maybe time to come back to Perth. I knew Gav Price, and I liked Gav. I liked his training. At that point, I seemed quite confident, and there was a good chance of us winning that league. Yeah. And that's what we went on to do. But yeah, Kinnoull, small club. I'm just trying to think. To be honest, they're probably similar to a Crossgates, something like that. There's like no stands or anything. It's right in the middle of an old school industrial estate, but nice tight park. Yeah, good club. Good memories there as well. I think it was two full years there as well. One of which we won the regional league. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time there as well. Was there any sort of rivalry between them and the likes of Jeanfield? Yeah. Because I was wondering about that obviously, because I noticed you went on to make the jump back to Jeanfield in your second spell. Did you get a bit of heat for that?
Yeah, it didn't go down well. Actually, to this day, when I go, if I'm in a pub or whatever in Perth, and I sometimes see the board members at Kinnoull, it's frosty, to be fair. But yeah, there has been, throughout the years, Kinnoull and Jeanfield. I'm not the only one. There's a few players that have done the switch. And actually, midway through our second season, I believe, Gav Price left Kinnoull and went to Jeanfield, which is the biggest sort of rivals.
Moving on to Jeanfield, you were talking about your successful spells, the other clubs you had previously been in. Was this probably your most successful spell to date in terms of what you achieved at Jeanfield in your second spell? Yes, I think that's fair. That was another 2 seasons. I think I played. It was Ross Gunyon, Gunny, who's still the manager there. Took me in at Jeanfield, and I always remember the first game of that season. We went down to, it was Armadale, I think, or a team down that way, down Lothian, and we had something like, if any of the lads are listening to this, they'll remember it. I think we had about 12 players, a few young lads in there, and it was 0-0 at half time. We got absolutely battered, and then we came out the second half and we won 5-0, and that's when a good friend of mine, Chris McLeish, who's now at Elgin, up the road at Elgin, and he was playing. A few other lads that I know well, and still there as well, they were playing, and pretty much from that moment on, that first game of the season, half time, we went out and won 5-0. We just didn't look back. Yep. That particular season, I remember it well, very fondly. I think we have broken, and it'll never be broken again, the best point season ever in that season, I think, which is the Premier League. Yeah, and the East Region's East Premier League. Yeah. Were you a wee bit, obviously that kind of attracted the likes of Elgin City. It would definitely be a hard thing to turn down, going up to league football and becoming almost a professional again, if you will. Was it a difficult decision though? It actually was, to be fair. We had that season about 3 or 4 games to seal the league, one of which was down at Oakley actually.
I think the seniors at that time had finished, and Jim Weir, that we knew, because he lives in Perth, Jim, he was the manager at Elgin at the time, and Gav Price was in at number 2. So I think for pretty much 3 or 4 games, I did see Jim and Gav there a couple of times. We were looking at both myself and Chris McLeish. I don't think Jim was 100% sure, to be honest, whether he should maybe take me and Chris, and it was a wee bit of a risk. Certainly first season, obviously it's been a while since I've played at that sort of level, even though the level that Jeanfield were playing at the time was still very high. And yeah, we got off to we finished the season flying, both me and Chris, and then we got offered just before we went to Magaluf, actually, with the boys to celebrate. So, and then obviously when we were in Magaluf, me and Chris kind of over a couple of beers made the decision that we may as well just try it, sign a 1 year up the road, see how we get on. Which, I mean, obviously training in that, being in Inverness once a week, and then we trained with Brecon in Stirling on the Thursday. It was a massive commitment.
Yeah.
But yeah, hard decision, definitely.
Just before we move on, I've got I don't know, there's a few people that know about this, but the only time I went to Magaluf, I went with my 2 ex-girlfriends.
Right, okay.
And there were 2 exes at the time, so I'm not actually 100% sure what was going through my head at that point in time in my life, but
yeah, me neither.
There's stories you could tell me. Yeah. So Elgin City, obviously, it was a great, as I mentioned, obviously you moved up to sort of professional football again. How did you feel as a footballer? Did you feel ready for that again? Or?
Yeah, to be honest, I never overly thought about it. Tough decision leaving Jeanfield, because we'd won the league so convincingly, and we were moving up into the Super League. So it was tough, and obviously the manager at Jeanfield wanted me to sign again, and I just thought it was the time to move on. So going to Elgin, I remember the first couple of training sessions. We drove up to Lossiemouth, Kinnoull is the place, right in the north, pretty much, of Scotland, and we had our first session, and it was nothing too strenuous. It was pre-season, but nothing too difficult. I think when I noticed the big difference is when we went into the Betfred Cup section at the start of the season, and we were going away to places like Falkirk, playing in front of a couple of thousand, and you kind of realise that that's why I've made the decision. I think we played at home against Inverness, Ross County, and we played against Hearts, I think, in my second season, and just playing against these full-time players, testing yourself. It was tough, but it was something I really enjoyed. And Elgin, I don't know if you've ever been up to Boroughbriggs.
No, I don't think. No.
But Boroughbriggs is one of these old-style sort of stadiums, and they're averaging between 500 to 1,000 every home game. So. And obviously everyone was great with me up there. They looked after you. The only obviously downside was the travelling.
Yeah.
But we made that commitment. I made that commitment for 2 years, so we couldn't complain too much.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Elgin City were the season before you came in. I think they were pushing. They just missed out on the playoffs, so obviously they kind of expected maybe that again, and that's going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, it was when we came in. I think it was actually Barry Ferguson's Clyde, I believe, that I think they beat Elgin in the semi-final. I'm sure that happened. Just the season before I went, and then so that was the aim when I went to Elgin. They basically says, look, we're trying to get promoted. I think they actually hold the record for the team to stay in League Two the longest ever. So they're still trying to get out, but they're pretty much mid-table consistently, Elgin City.
And to this day as well, I think.
To this day, I was actually watching them on Saturday against Cowdenbeath after we trained.
Yep.
And they blew a 1-goal lead. They got beat 2-1 down at Cowden. So hopefully they can get promoted at some point.
In terms of your second season, I've obviously done my research as I said to you before we started recording. But from your own words, I think you called it a frustrating season. Yeah. You had you were in and out of the team. You had unfortunately broken your collarbone, and that kind of cut short the second half of your season. What does that do in terms of your mentality as a footballer? If you obviously got back to that level of playing, and then it's sort of.
No, it is tough, Chris, because I think the first season I was pretty much a regular. I had scored, I think it was 5 goals in my first season, back at sort of senior football, if you like. I was enjoying it. I was playing under Jim Weir, and then he moved to go to Forfar. And then under Gav, I just found myself pretty much in and out of the team. Moving into the second season, Gav was in charge, and Gav's obviously a good friend of mine. I know Gav well. Started the season quite well. My form dipped, so I found myself on the bench pretty much from Christmas to the middle of February, and I was coming off the bench and doing really well at the time. So I was almost, pushing for a starting place. And yeah, I broke my collarbone. It was the week before my birthday. I think it was middle of February. I remember it well. It was against Annan. Gav liked to bring me on probably just about an hour after about an hour to make an impact, which was maybe detrimental for me starting because basically found myself as an impact player. Yeah. But yeah, I remember coming on determined to do well, and I jinked past the Annan fullback, and I tripped over his leg. It was a foul, but I didn't have time to react, to put my hands out, and I ended up falling straight on my shoulder. And I just heard this, I can only describe it as a crack, and then I thought I'd maybe dislocated my shoulder. I've never really had a serious injury either, Chris, so I wasn't too sure what I'd done, and I was literally just on the pitch as well. You're talking maybe a minute. So I got up, the physio had a sort of look at me, and he says, "You alright to continue?" I was like, I'll be fine, and then just pretty much I tried to move my arm and I couldn't, and then I had to get taken off, and it wasn't until I went into the changing room where the shock hit, and then basically spewed my load, and had to get an ambulance was going to take too long, so I ended up getting a lift up, what I can remember, and then straight up to the Elgin Hospital, which was a site in A&E up there at that time. And then I had to get somebody to drive I drove that day as well, so I had to get somebody to drive down the road. So
how did obviously that was kind of towards the end of your Elgin. How did it come about that you went back to Jeanfield?
So pretty much it was late February. I broke my collarbone, and I remember being able to go back. I felt like I could go running way before. Well, I could go running, but what the surgeons had said was basically if I was to take a fall, my collarbone wasn't strong enough to withhold it, so you can't play, which is really frustrating, because if you get an injury, in your legs anywhere, for example, you physically a lot of the time can't walk, so you can, it's easier to take. But because it was up in your collarbone, I mean that's normal for a rugby player more than somebody that plays football. So really frustrating. So it came about pretty much, we were humming and hawing whether I would get a new contract. I was unable to play for my contract, which was frustrating to say the least. I started running properly at the very last game away to Montrose, when Montrose won the league. They got presented with the league that day. Wasn't in the squad, but I was pretty much fit, but that was the last game of the season.
So that would have been a sore one, I take it?
Was a sore one, to be honest, because like I said, you couldn't really play for my contract, and then I had a meeting with the gaffer Gav, and Gav says that I wasn't really in his plans, which to be fair was hard to take, because like I says, I'd been running, I always keep myself fit anyway. And then you're obviously at this level, you're on your own trying to find a club, and that's pretty much leading on to the next point. I was at that point of the season been released from Elgin, went to train with Cowdenbeath with Gary Boland for the full 2 weeks, I think it was. So there was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday sessions. Saturdays were doubles. Really tough pre-season, and to be fair, Flax and Gary and Foz done me a massive favour letting me go in there and train. Felt really fit, and then at the last minute the deal fell through, so I found myself again with no club, and then my good friend Gunny, who's the manager at Jeanfield, said to come in, you will be fit and you'll play, and then just kicked on from pre-season. I think I played one pre-season game with Jeanfield, and then just kicked on, and it was also good going to Jeanfield because it wasn't the juniors. They had made the jump up, which was interesting because you're going away to places like Edinburgh, Heriot Watt Uni, and loads of Astral pitches which suit me, and it made a lot of sense for me at the time to go back to Jeanfield.
What was I take it the mentality's different, like your first, second and probably your third experiences at Jeanfield, all kind of different leagues. It's kind of a progression. Was it good to sort of see Jeanfield and getting that sort of progression from where you first started with them and then sort of where you ended up?
I think so. I think, to be honest with you, the Jeanfield model and the Kelty model are very similar. I think, well, I know you know, Jeanfield are looking to make that step up, you know, into the Lowland League and follow the likes of Kelty at the moment. But yeah, you know, it was good seeing them in the regional leagues and then doing so well in the Premier. They did survive in the Super League twice before it reformed, so they never got relegated, which was good. And then seeing them now in the East of Scotland, sitting third, I believe, behind Broxburn and Lithgow. And yeah, like it says, it's good to see them doing well, and I wish them all the best for next season anyway.
And I think I messaged you obviously when I was going to the Linlithgow Jeanfield game. There was a few boys that you sort of marked out, if you will, and I think when you came into Jeanfield, they brought in the likes of Conor McLaren of Montrose, Aaron Whitehill, Elgin, and Paul Simpson and Berwick Rangers. So is it good to see the likes of East of Scotland and Lowland League teams kind of bringing this calibre of the players, including yourself in that, I suppose, mate? Obviously. Yes,
it is. Yeah, it is. I think. I mean, not just Jeanfield. There's especially next season that league is going to be strong.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really strong league, and to be honest, it doesn't surprise me. The likes of Jeanfield and other teams getting players like the ones you've just mentioned. You know, because it's a bit different. I think, to be honest, the juniors, as good as it was getting to a stage where it was getting a little bit sort of dated.
Yeah.
You know, the same sort of cups and what have you, and you know, it's quite exciting. It's certainly exciting for me when I went, you know, back to Jeanfield. But yeah, I mean, Jeanfield got a good model there. I'm not surprised. Likes of Connor, me and Connor were going head to head at one point for the top goal scorer. He's obviously overtaken me now because I've moved on. Still raging about that a little bit. Aaron Whitehead I've played with before at Jeanfield, before Elgin. He never played much at all at Elgin, but he's a good player. And Paul Simpson is a right good talent as well, from Berwick. So I think pretty much all of them you've mentioned, Connor, Paul and Aaron, they weren't really getting games at their clubs at senior level, so coming down to a level where you're going to play, and I don't know if you've ever been to Jeanfield, but they've probably got one of the best grass pitches. I can tell you that for definite. They've got one of the best grass pitches, big, and you go down there and play, and you know, pretty much all of them have done really well this season. I think Connor will finish top goal scorer. Aaron will definitely be running for Player of the Year, as will Paul Simpson. Is
there any sort of guys we've missed out that you deserve a wee bit of a mention?
The older crew, if you like, quite similar to the Sean Greggs and the players like that. Here you've got Chris Anton, who's been at Jeanfield for years, and Mark Mitchell, Robbie Holden, who you've probably seen through the years, scoring plenty of goals. He's actually the record goal scorer at Jeanfield. And yeah, you know, these boys have been there for years, and obviously the manager down there, Gunny, who used to be a player, you know, he's doing a good job down there. So that's who I would mention probably.
How easy is it going to be for the likes of, I'm assuming 2 East of Scotland teams coming into the Lowland League? Well, would they definitely be competitive compared to other teams?
Yes. So you're meaning Bonnyrigg, perhaps?
Bonnyrigg,
basically the 3 that are in. Yeah. I think pretty much looking at possibly the likes of Linlithgow, pretty much any of the top 3 that are currently there, the likes of Pennycook, Bonnyrigg, Broxburn. I think, to be honest, I've played against Broxburn 2 or 3 times. They'll be competitive. I don't think they'll push for any sort of title in the Lowland League. I think the likes of Bonnyrigg, I think they're well backed. I think if they come up, they'll certainly be top half. But certainly all these teams I've mentioned, they'll definitely be competitive in that league.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's not a huge jump. I think the top level of the Lowland League, you've got some cracking players, teams that defend well, hard to beat. But apart from that, there isn't a huge difference, I wouldn't say.
Yep. And obviously, as we know, while we're here in December, you moved to Kelty. I don't think it's gone too behind the scenes, because obviously I've got insider knowledge to say the least, but I think it's known that I think the likes of Cowdenbeath wanted you. So what was the reasoning to come to the likes of Kelty rather than go back to league football, if you will?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it was a hard decision. Made a lot easier when I had a word with the gaffer here and actually turning up at training. I've always, going back to my junior days, I've actually never played here. So I've never seen what it was like before or anything like that. But I did follow a lot of Kelty in regards to the jump they made up to the Lowland League and what have you, what they were doing with the pitch, the social clubs, the new stand. And you're right, I was very close to going to Cowdenbeath. I actually trained with Cowdenbeath on the Tuesday. I had a phone call on the Wednesday from the manager, the gaffer here, and from the general manager, Dean. Yep. And I loved what they said. I think they basically said they'd look after my mum and dad. They follow me everywhere, so that was a big thing for me. And yeah, I got invited down to training on the Thursday. The boys were great with me. The setup, I was not amazed, but I was very impressed with the setup of the club. And got looked after, so that's how that move came about. And following a conversation with the gaffer in my first session, I thought I've got a right good chance here of potentially going and winning things here at Kelty, and that was an important part of my decision. I did at that point at Jeanfield want to play as high as I can, because I'm 28, but I basically weighed up success over playing at that slightly higher level. Not that it's a massive jump in my opinion, but like I says, all going well, I can be part of this club for the next 2-3 years, hopefully longer, and going back to my junior days, they're the days you remember when you win stuff. Forget about just playing at teams for a matter of years and just going through the leagues, but if you can win something, that's what you'll look back and remember. So absolutely, and obviously Kelty have a bit of a record for it, especially more recently as well. Correct. So you've got to look after yourself in that aspect. You try to get success, and obviously the gaffer has got a massive profile, as does the club, but it's obviously a bit surreal coming in and meeting him, but that all goes by the by after a while, because he just becomes your manager at that point. But he's straight laced, he's down the middle. I think I can go on record and say it's the best training that I've ever had at any level. With Bob and Callum and Muzz with fitness stuff as well, I feel like I'm probably up there with the fittest I've ever been as well. And being at my age, at 28, you could easily go and play at any club in Perth, but if for a certain amount of time. But I think it's trying to test yourself. You know what I mean? So I didn't know anybody down here apart from Brian Ritchie, and I hadn't spoke to him in years. So kind of like your first day to school again coming in. It actually feels like it's been the longest season ever, eh? It feels like about 3 years ago, that last game at Montrose with Elgin, I was trying to get fit, and I've been training with various clubs since then. But yeah, here again for next season as well. So I think you already said it, but obviously Barry Ferguson, a massive name in Scottish football. I take it that played a factor in it also. Yeah, it did play a factor. Obviously, I wouldn't say it played a factor because of his profile. What it did play a factor in is I liked what he had to say. Like he phoned me, I remember it well, I was in the gym. I actually thought it was a wind up at the time, to be honest with you. But yeah, I just liked what he had to say. He was straight laced. He said, look, at the end of the day, I want you to come in. There's no guarantees you'll play, but if you work hard, etc, etc. And obviously he spoke about the club well, and then that was kind of reiterated through Dean. And I remember Dean sending me some stuff about where he sees Kelty in the next sort of 2 to 3 years. The presentation, basically. Yeah, the present. That's exactly what it was. I'm sure everyone's seen that, but it is quite impressive. And then obviously followed up by coming here. But yeah, it had an impact on my decision, but not because of who the gaffer is. But I liked what he had to say, to be honest. Also, I think, even I see him every week almost, kind of similar to yourself, but I've spoke to him a few times in terms of interviews, and even through them, he obviously demands quite a lot. His standards are really high. I can tell that just by talking to him. Definitely. What's it like playing under him in terms of as a player? I think he definitely is demanding. That is, we all know that. I think I think that's well known. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nope. He's obviously a born winner. He's played at the highest level. what he's like to play under, to be honest with you, when it comes to training and games, it's pretty much the same. If you're not doing your job or you're slacking off, he'll tell you. As long as you can handle that telling, it's only going to be a good thing.
Yep.
You know, just make sure you. Sometimes you'll come down here on a Tuesday night from Perth, and I'll think, you know, the Champions League's on. It's a bit cold outside, and then within sort of 10-15 minutes, he's on you. Everything's, you know, set out for you. You know, after the session, you thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, but yeah, he's good to play under. He is demanding, and like I said, but he is straight laced, and as a player, straight down the middle. That's what you want. You don't want somebody that's going to give you mixed signals at the end of the day.
No, fair dues. Obviously, honesty is one of the most important things. Definitely. I think in terms of feedback. Early, about a month into your sort of Kelty career, if you will, we actually spoke before. I don't know if you remember it. It never made air, if you will, because obviously what happened with Kinnoull. But I think it's okay to speak about it now. Obviously not your fault, but how gutted were like yourself and the boys of what happened, you know, there with the ineligible player?
Yeah, that was a surreal night. Well, I say night, it was obviously day, but I remember it being sort of, I think, was it January time?
Yep, January.
Yeah, really surreal. I wasn't long in the door. I'd got off to a very, quite a decent start here. To answer to your question, I was absolutely gutted. I trained all week, and I was available for selection. At no point in the game against Kinnoull did I think I'd played in this competition before. It didn't even enter my mind. And then it just so happens that I actually had a really good game that night.
Yep.
I played quite well. So I actually probably scored one of the best goals of my career, which doesn't count for anything now, which is even more gutting. And yeah, I remember scoring. I actually had a night out that night as well. I had a 40th, and I was just buzzing that the game went well. We had got through to the semis? Semi-final. Scored, I was buzzing. I got interviewed after the game, and now obviously I think that was you, and I got another interview, and like I says, I was getting asked, do you mind who you get, etc., and I said no, I'm not bothered. I'm just buzzing for the club getting to a semi. And then I was actually here in the social club, and one of my ex-teammates at Jeanfield texted me saying, did you play today? And I thought he was going to text me saying, congratulations, well done, on your goal or whatever. And I said, yeah, thanks mate, yeah it was. And then he said, oh, you've actually played in this competition twice. And I was like, you're winding me up. And he's like, no, you have. And I was like, who? I actually played against East Kilbride and then civil service. And I actually scored against East Kilbride. I think that was the first round. And yeah, so I pretty much told the skipper here first, and then we went on and double checked with the secretary, and he confirmed it. And I was just absolutely gutted, really, really gutted. And I actually had to phone Gary. So I remember he's a secretary, so he should be looking at, I think it's a joint thing. I should have known really, but going up to the between the Lowland League and East of Scotland and coming from the juniors and what have you, it's very, very difficult to know what competition. So obviously, if I was pulled on the Thursday, Senior Cup tie, then that was fine. But nobody mentioned it. Nobody sort of said. And like I said, I played the game, and I'm actually sure I was in the programme. My mum and dad said I was in the programme that day, saying I'd scored earlier rounds. But
well, this is the thing, because obviously I did the lineup and obviously I cover the league, and I've probably mentioned the fact that you scored for the likes of Jeanfield. So. In fairness to Gary, he does a great job. He does a great job, and it's just one of those oversights. It's one of those things. I mean, I was in here after the game, and I was literally about to upload the thing when it started doing the rounds that yourself was ineligible, and I got a bit of heat for Sahing as well, because I don't know, you'll probably remember, there was a reporter there from like the Sun or something,
right?
And I was sitting beside him. And then obviously the word got round that there was an eligible player, obviously that being yourself, and he was asking me, because he had actually sat beside me at the match, sort of thing, because he obviously knew I was doing the match day Twitter. Oh, do you want to go on record? And I was like, no, it's not to do with me, but I'll just do the Twitter. So I got a bit of heat. It is what it is, man.
It is what it is. I actually phoned Gary on the Sunday, and I just basically told him not to worry about it, because these things happen. I think he was gutted. Yeah. He actually came in on the Tuesday and apologised. I apologised as well, but to this day I've been taking a bit of stick from the boys in the changing room, but it's all light-hearted. But I am gutted, definitely I'm gutted, because from a personal point of view, doing well in the day, but also for the club as well, getting to, because we've not managed to to pip East Kilbride this season, that would have been, and I'm sure we would have went on to at least make the final. That is a little bit gutting, to be fair, but like I says, these mistakes happen at the end of the day, and it's a learning curve for everyone. And
obviously, I've let you know about my sort of dealing with that situation. The club's moved on, fantastic. We can probably laugh about it now, but it's one of those things in football where it's nothing to do with what's went on in the park. It's just something that's happened. As I say,
these things happened. These things happen at all levels, to be honest.
But Champions League has happened as well. So
I'm sure it's happened everywhere, but it's just one of these things that the paperwork and what have you. I'm sure it is, to be honest, easy done.
Absolutely.
Try to keep a hand of bookings and suspensions and player eligibility, and that can't be easy, to be fair.
And just getting in, obviously moving on, you've me personally, I've pretty much seen you almost every week. I think you're doing terrific. 14 appearances, 5 goals, and I don't know how much you knew about Kelty before, but there was kind of, I'm assuming you probably know this, obviously the gaffers probably said, or the guys that were here previously, but there was probably a lack of pace in the team. The likes of yourself and even the likes of Ross coming up from the under-20s kind of added a wee bit more pace, in the wings, if you will. How easy is it as a wide player playing on a sort of narrow pitch, if you will? Here we have it, New Central Park.
Yeah, you're right. It is quite a narrow park. It's not as bad for me, I would say, as it might be for Ross, because Ross Much, obviously I know he's injured just now, playing on the other wing, but the gaffer pretty much gives me a licence to come infield quite a bit. So the transition, to be honest with you, is not it's not overly difficult. You do see it at times when if we're dominating the play like we do a lot here at home, it can be limited space. If you get teams coming up here and sitting with sort of 2 banks, a 4 or a 5, if you like, it was really tough to break down. That's when you can find there's less space.
There's a few games we know of.
So I mean, it must be frustrating to watch. It's definitely frustrating to play in, but it's so hard to play against when teams do that. But sometimes when there's a lack of space, it can be detrimental to a player like me or Ross on the other wing, or whoever plays as a winger.
But there's been a lot of young guys come up from the under-20s, obviously like Ross, who we mentioned, Kieran Macaulay, Owen Andrew now sort of coming into the team. What advice do you give to these sort of young guys coming into the team as a sort of, if you will, a guy that's had the experience that you've had in your career?
I have to admit, it's a bit surreal even saying that, that I'm one of the more experienced. I don't know where time goes, to be fair, but I do, at a quiet level, do speak to these young lads that come up. I've spoke to all of them individually, particularly Ross, because he plays the same position as me. My advice normally is, if you find yourself not in the team, for example, for the certain players, just be patient, work hard on a Tuesday and a Thursday, because particularly with this coaching staff, the gaffer, Bob and Callum and Muzz, they do notice that in training. So always work hard. It's quite easy as a player to sulk sometimes if you're not playing. More specifically to Ross, sometimes, as I've previously mentioned, if teams are making it really difficult for us to play, which does happen a lot, I try and tell Ross to be very patient, because it only takes a few seconds to make a difference in a game. But if you've not touched the ball as a wide man for a good 20-25 minutes, or made an impact, it is frustrating. And I remember being sort of 19-20 and getting really frustrated and silly bookings, and I can sometimes see that in Ross, to be honest. So I try and just make sure, just let him know to be calm, and the game will come to you. And to be honest, all you need is, as a wide man anyway, is a 10-15 minute spell for you to shift the game for your team. So that's probably the main advice I give to young lads.
And well, the season objective was top 4, and obviously these guys have secured 3rd. Where do you see Kelty going next season? I take it challenging once again. Yeah,
that's the ambition certainly. I'm sure the gaffer's got signing targets to strengthen the squad. There will be players in, and I'm sure there'll be players out, as there always is at that time of season. The objection is to get as close to promotion as we can leading up to the last business end of the season. And if we're in with a shout, then go ahead and win that league. Has to be said, certainly it's not easy to get promotion up to League 2 with what you need to do. You've got to win the league, then go into a double playoff pretty much, isn't it?
Yep.
That is the ambition. I think I see Kelty, to be honest, being in League 2 in the next 2 to 3 years anyway.
Absolutely.
But the ambition definitely for next season is promotion.
Okay.
Gaffer's made that clear.
And one thing you've mentioned, obviously the support you've had from your family sounds like absolutely fantastic. I think it's your mum that comes to games. I always hear at every sort of Kelty game, come on Doddsy or whatever. So.
Yeah, my mum and my dad, oh God bless them, they come everywhere. My mum's actually partially sighted. I don't know if you see her in the stand, she's got her sort of stick. She's only got a certain amount, she maybe got 40% of her sight. She took really unwell about 5 years ago. She had an aneurysm, really tough time for the family. She went under the knife a couple of times, and she lost a bit of her sight, so really lucky to have her. But yeah, she comes to all the home games, and if we've got the big bus on we'll go down south, she'll come. But yeah, she loves coming to watch me no matter where it is. But if you see her, she's got a Kelty scarf and hat, and if you watch the videos of the games, you can always hear her there sitting there with a beaver trying to watch the games. But yeah, they're both great. Dad's pretty quiet, and it's obviously not far for them to travel. It's 20-25 minutes down the road there to Perth, so they always get looked after. As promised, they get looked after as soon as they come in. They've got their own seats in the stand and that, and they really enjoy coming down. Well, obviously it's almost training time for yourself. Good luck on Saturday against East Kilbride. I'll be at the game, and the League Cup Spartans next Friday as well. All the best, Dodgy. Cheers for coming down an hour early before training.